Yo guys, what is up? Max on our Borderlands 4 video, and today we're going to be going over the kind of last big hotfix or patch for Borderlands 4 before the year ends. They did a few cool things in this that I want to cover, but I also want to talk kind of about like my opinions on the state of the game and just kind of break that down. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let's do this. So the first thing to talk about is that they are doing a triple threat of big encore bosses and season looting. So there's going to be 3 big encore bosses. All of the vault bosses you can fight in big encore mode. It seems like from the devs tweeting on Twitter that they're trying out and wanting to see people's opinions of having 3 big encore bosses a week rather than just 1, which is definitely a step in the right direction. A lot of people have been asking for that. They're also doing a seasons looting event where you're 5 times more likely to get a legendary drop outside of big encore bosses and Bloom Reaper. So big encore already gives you a sizable buff to your loot drops. So anywhere that isn't big encore and Bloom Reaper, you're going to have 5x the chance for a legendary. I played for a little bit earlier, and it seemed like I was getting legendaries pretty consistently each kill. So that is also a very nice change. Now, this is a temporary change. This will end on January 8th in terms of the 5x loot. However, it does sound like the devs are trying to get some feedback on if that feels better, if players like it, if it's too much. We saw it in Borderlands 3. A lot of the times, anytime they would do something that was a temporary event, such as the True Takedowns, which was a temporary event, they end up just turning it into something permanent. So I would imagine that this is basically just we're going to be getting higher drop rates in the game, which is definitely also a good step. They also put a end game survey, which I have some very harsh opinions of, which we'll talk about in a second. And then they also did some change notes. They addressed an exploit where your UVHM rewards can be redeemed in non-UVH Bloom Reaper fights. There's season looting is going on. The weekly big encore is Guardian, Inceptus, Origo, and Radix. All of these guys drop some pretty awesome loot. So if you're looking for it, now is your chance to go farm some. Once again, though, this isn't with the 5x, but you still get a ton of loot from them being big encores. The Rush the Gate is for the Aegon's Dream. Wouldn't recommend doing that. I still think these missions are really, really bad and undercooked. Maurice's Black Market vending machine has moved. We'll talk about that in a second. They also seem to have posted the week after that, which is also the triple vault bosses, and then the Timekeeper's Order for the Plasma Coil. Also, still probably wouldn't recommend doing that, and a new Maurice Black Market vending machine location. Maurice's Black Market vending machine can be found in the coastal Bonescape. If you travel basically to where you spawn in at the start of the game, go west, and then just go up the kind of beach side. You'll eventually just get it here. It's out on this dock. This week, I've got a Oak Age cast, not very good, and the Phantom Flame, which I do like, but is very, very minimal part variance. So not a great week for me. Hopefully, it's a better week for you. Now, I kind of want to talk about this endgame survey that they posted. This was labeled as the weekly endgame activities. They asked players to pick their favorite bosses, legendary weapons, campaign weapons, and then asked how excited are you about potential limited time events for increased XP, cash, iridium, class mod drop rates, enhancement drop rates, legendary drop rates, phosphine drop rates, and then limited time events for meteor events, airship events, elite rifts, bounty board events, boss events, elemental enemy events, loot enemy events. If we ran limited events, how often would you want to see them in our weekly endgame updates? And to me, this was really, really frustrating. And maybe I'm overlooking this, but one, we had limited time events in Borderlands 3, and they were really good. We had things like Loot the Universe that were awesome, and I kind of just assumed that this would be something that they would be implementing around launch for Borderlands 4 because they worked out so well. However, like, these are great. I think they should definitely do them. These are not endgame content. The number one thing that this game is missing right now, in my opinion, is still endgame content. And we're definitely getting better on that side. We now have True Mode, which is a big increase to difficulty in enemy spawns. We now have a raid boss. But for me personally, while getting all these things are great, it's very hard to celebrate stuff like that when I feel like they should have been in the game at launch. And it feels like we keep unlearning the lessons that we've learned in the past game, and it's been really, really frustrating because Gearbox took a long time to get Borderlands 3 into a good state. It launched in a really, really bad state, and now it just seems like all the same mistakes are being repeated with BL4 all over again. I don't understand why we're giving feedback on limited time events. Like, increased XP and cash is good, but it's not endgame content. That's not what the game needs. They should definitely do that. I don't really know why they need feedback on that. But, for example, there's so many things that they could do to do something like this and actually implement it as permanent endgame content. If you buff enhancement drop rates for 1 week as a limited time event, once it's over, it's over. That's not a substantial improvement to the game. It's a band-aid fix. And so I'd love to see them, if they want to do things like buff enhancements or buff class mods or buff phosphenes, give us ways to incorporate that into the actual endgame. Make it an actual endgame activity. Add a new currency. This is just an example, but like add a new currency that could drop at UVH 6. Maybe it's Ordinite, and then you could go to the like special vendor that is exclusive to the end game, and you could use it to put it into a silo. I've said this since before the game launched. You could buy that little booster thing, you'd put it into the silo, and then for 5 hours, if you put it into this silo, your fade fields, this whole fade field section, all the boss and all the enemies would have like a 50% chance or 30% chance of dropping Jacob's parts on their gear, but you'd have also double the spawn rate of badass enemies. So you'd get better loot, but you would also have to deal with harder difficulty. That's something that you could implement as a permanent thing into the game to give the effect of having players have more control and have more effect over the loot that they want and over the loot they want to chase without having to make it a limited time event that goes away, that doesn't add any substance or longevity to the actual game. The next thing in the survey was Vault Hunters and Vault Hunter balance. Now, I actually think that this is quite good. I'm glad that they're asking these questions and trying to get feedback on the Vault Hunters and the manufacturer balance, because they're definitely out of whack. And balance has also been something that's been quite frustrating. Now, Gearbox has done one great thing with the balance of this game, in that they didn't come crashing down on anything that was super strong in the first few weeks of the game. We had huge nerf patches in BL3 and also in Borderlands that really hurt a lot of players' experience by nerfing things too quickly before any actual metas were really established. So I'm glad that they've cut back on the nerfs, but they also seem to be really, really timid with buffs, and balance, at least for my taste, hasn't been moving or improving in a great enough state. We are now like 4 months past launch, and Blue Tree Harlow has received 1 buff and isn't viable or really playable at endgame. We've had like 3 buff patches to Trouble, netting out like maybe 50% increased damage when it needs like more than triple or quadruple damage. It's just, things are taking a very, very long time to move the needle, and for me, that personally has been frustrating. I'd really like to see them shake up balance. We've got 2 good shields maybe in the entirety of the game. There's still nothing to really augment melee builds in the enhancement slot. A lot of these things I'd love to see, but I also want to see them take more risks with balance and stuff like that, because, you know, while nerfs are never people's favorite thing, they also improve the reason to go out and get new stuff and change their builds and adapt. And we really haven't had many nerfs, which is definitely good, but there are some things that definitely need some tuning and some things that really need some love. And honestly, like reworks, I honestly don't know if Blue Tree Harlow is in a state where, like, even if they buffed the numbers numerically, like if it actually net out in a positive difference, like fundamentally that skill tree just really needs some love. And the same with like Amon's Crucibles and Vex's Trouble. Guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. I have made some new builds with some of the new class mods and stuff like that. I made an Amon melee build, which will hopefully be up tomorrow with his new class mod. I've been messing around with the new Trooper class mod for Harlow, which you can do some very, very wacky things on. However, it bugs out from my testing most of the time and breaks and stops working. Sometimes you need to reboot the entire game to get it to just function, which has been really, really frustrating. I don't understand why you would ever use Rafa's class mod over the Dancer, personally, but hopefully I'll have a Harlow, Amon, and a new Vex build out for Bloom Reaper using the new class mod and stuff. Guys, I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care. Peace.